Good morning, everybody. I'm going to wait a few minutes. Lots of thoughts. Lots of thoughts. As of this morning, sure, everybody is aware at this point. I mean, how could you not? Everywhere you look, everybody talking about the same thing, right? It is horrible. And actually, a lot of people aren't aware, but I guess yesterday there was also a school shooting, but it's not really being covered. So you had a school shooting yesterday on top of what happened to Charlie Kirk. And then, of course, the other day, what happened to the Ukrainian woman on the bus. And I don't know, I hear a lot of people saying, if you haven't seen the uncensored video of what happened to Charlie, they're saying, I don't recommend you watch it. I actually have a different opinion. I think you should go watch it. It is a very graphic video, but it's the truth of what happened. And I think, it's interesting because the internet and social media has made it to where we're constantly hearing of events like this take place. But for some reason yesterday, it felt a little different. And I have to admit, it got to me a little bit. And it really, now I'm not say a Charlie Kirk fan. I've watched many of his videos, his debates, but I'm not a Charlie Kirk fan or supporter, and I've actually, a lot of things I disagree with him on, but I'm apolitical myself. I don't subscribe to one side or the other. I find both parties to be morally reprehensible. And what I'm seeing online take place now is, it's just disgusting what people are saying. The celebration of it, or the mockery of it. I don't care what side of the aisle you sit on to celebrate something like this. I mean, what does that really say about you as a person? I mean, I would really need to take a look in the mirror if I find myself, you're talking about an individual who had 2 children and family, and it's like put yourself in their shoes. I'm reminded of, but see, when I see, to me, events like this, if you know anything about the history of these sort of events, there's always a whole lot more to the story than what's put out there. It really reminds me of, if anybody has really kind of investigated the JFK assassination and the Lee Harvey Oswald, how, he was a fall guy and so on and so forth, and then there's Zapruder tapes, and so nobody really knows who did it. Now, do I think the CIA was involved? Absolutely. But you don't really know who pulled the trigger. So events like this really remind me of that, and how I have so many books. If anybody's read Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky, This really reminds me of that. Or if anybody's read any books on, say, the MK Ultra program, we're talking about some really deep rabbit holes, and what, things that people would, as soon as they hear you discuss it, would instantly label you a conspiracy theorist, yada yada yada, whatever. But what I don't, or I'm sorry, the book Propaganda by Edward Bernays, which I've had Edward Bernays, the part 2 of my the parallels between the rise and aggression between dogs and kids series. I have Edward Bernays is featured in that video. And if you've never read his book Propaganda, he had a book before that called something about social engineering. But this event, what happened to Charlie, to me, because automatically, you hear what people are saying. They're automatically assuming, oh, it was some radical leftist lunatic who did it, yada yada yada, because all these people push violence and so on and so forth. Yeah, but to me, it's not that simple. Is that possible? Sure. However, considering most of those people are also anti-gun, pretty unlikely. And for that shot to have been as accurate as it was, also pretty unlikely. And now there are people reporting that I guess the ATF has sent messages out that they don't really want people to know about, saying that a rifle was found near the campus that would have been lined with the position of the shooter, and the bullets are inscribed with transgender anti-fascist slogans. And I'm thinking, come on, do you really think? I look at it this way. Have you ever seen the meme? And I think I'll use this meme as the thumbnail. But the meme of, it was like a little cartoon, and it was a king on his balcony, and you had all these people that were coming for the king. There was some kind of political uprising, but you had people with torches and you had people with pitchforks. And the king's advisor was saying, "Sir, what do we do? What do we do? They're coming for us." And the king just has a calm demeanor about him, and he says, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's easy. We'll just convince the pitchfork people that the torch people are trying to take their pitchforks. Divide and conquer, right?" So when I see when things like this happen to me, and then I read information that says the bullets were inscribed with transgender anti-fascist rhetoric, I mean, come on. And then you see all the disgusting things that people are saying, whether you're celebrating or the people who identify or support Charlie Kirk saying, "Oh, this is war," or, we need to retaliate. Okay, well, do you not see how you're being manipulated? Do you not see how you're being manipulated? Do you not see how easy it is to be manipulated in this way? Because when you trigger the emotions, especially if you have people that supported Charlie or people that hated Charlie, either way, your emotions will be involved and you can be manipulated. There's something I want people to really open their eyes to, is no matter which side of the fence you're on, you're being manipulated. And it causes you to hate the other side even more. It causes more and more division, right? But how does this tie to the dog world? Well, I mean, we see this it's like every facet of our lives. This sort of manipulation and division is attempting to be sown. In the dog world, you have the force-free, balanced people fighting all the time. You have these two sides that are constantly hating each other, and then you have the Zach George types that are spewing all this political, rhetoric and hate and vitriol, and this constant messaging of, if you use a tool, you're an abuser, blah blah. It's the same type of shit. And this is what it leads to. It leads to people perceiving individuals on the other side in a way that promotes hate, promotes division, it promotes fighting. And I don't understand how people are blind to it's like will engage no matter which side you're on, you're adopting the same mentality or the same way of thinking as the other side, but thinking that you're absolved from it. And it's a situation where it's in the very same way as the division is in the dog world. In the political realm, it's no different. There's no reason people can't disagree with each other, but have a productive discourse. You know, Charlie Kirk was doing what Charlie Kirk believed in, debating. And for me personally, I'm very much pro-debate. I love debates. I enjoy them. I think a productive debate is a good thing. But now, like I've said, like I certainly did not agree with a lot of things Charlie said. I didn't agree with the way he was constantly pro-Trump. You know, the administration can do wrong, no wrong, yada yada yada. But I also think this is events like this really, when they take over in the way that this has, because what was everybody talking about before this, right? The Epstein shit. Well, if you think people in high places wouldn't do something like this to take the heat off of themselves, you don't know much about history. Because that is very much in line with something that they would do. But it's this radicalization that is being fostered in the minds of people. You know, in these days, we pit religion against religion. We pit skin color against skin color. We pit political ideology versus political ideology. We pit, quote, dog training ideology versus dog training ideology. And I do think it's interesting that, I don't know if anybody's ever noticed, when it comes to the whole dog training debates, typically people of Zach George ilk or the force-free ilk, they tend to align with all of these leftist ideologies and ideas and belief systems and whatnot. So to me though, this situation is not as simple as just somebody who hated Charlie Kirk so much that he decided to get up there and pull a trigger. I don't think it's that simple. It never is that simple. Not when it's done like this. And so what typically happens though is something like this will take place, as tragic as it is, but people are immediately emotionally engaged, no matter which side you're on. And so now people are making decisions based on those emotions, and that's how you get manipulated. It's a game of emotionalism. You get people on both sides to get riled up. This is why the political temperature in this country is so hot right now. It's because that's the game. And if you notice, when it comes to how we're being divided and everything else, as I said earlier, race, religion, politics, dog training, so many different areas. Hell, vegan, carnivore, there's another one. so many things that promote this tribalism and this I hate the other side mentality, and I can't have a rational discussion with the other side mentality. And all it does is events like this are used to get people to dig their heels in further on whatever side they identify with. And what does that get us? You know, what's funny to me too is like I hear people that are celebrating this talking about, oh, well, Charlie Kirk did it to himself. If you can only spew so much hate speech before, you know, it's like he did it to himself. Well, I'm sorry. So Martin Luther King Jr., right? I'm sure, you know, no matter what you thought of him personally, I'm sure those same people that celebrate this would not agree that Martin Luther King Jr. Deserved to go out the way he did, but that's what happened. And so, are we to assume that every time this sort of thing takes place that it's deserved? Is that really your position? But that's a sign of somebody who's just not very intelligent, um, making a really unintelligent remark or conclusion. So as much as, or I should say as unnecessary as events like this are, I think very very few people really see them for what they are, and are so quickly engaged on an emotional level. And personally, I'm tired of it. There's no reason like I said, debating and engaging with the other side and disagreeing, I got all the time in the world for that. But when it comes to relishing in somebody's life being taken because you don't agree with them or they said something that offended you, I mean, are we serious? But then again, sometimes I wonder how many of those people are also playing that game. You know, people will say a lot of really fucked up shit online just to get attention or just to drive the nail in further. You have to be aware of that too. Because, that happens a lot of the time. Come on, bro. But you see what happens. Um, if you look at all the events, say in the dog world, like what happened to Jeff Gelman over the whole bonker thing. I mean, he received death threats and a serious disruption in his life because of that incident. Now, do I agree with the whole use of bonkers and that I don't agree with it. But to get so emotionally triggered by something like that and then to send death threats to him and his family, to cause a disruption in the man's life. Like, what is it Mike Tyson said? He said, the internet, social media has made people way too comfortable disrespecting each other, without the threat of getting hit in the face. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. But I'm not a religious person. I am not political. I don't identify with either one of these groups. And like I said, I'm not a supporter of Charlie Kirk or. Um, I did enjoy watching his debates though, but you should always watch people you don't agree with, right? I think it's good. Hell, I'm even subscribed to his channel. I don't agree with him half the time. But to hear that discourse, I personally I enjoyed it. To say there's nothing of value to be gained from it, or any kind of discourse of that nature, I think is personally I disagree with that. But the events surrounding this, I do find it all very suspicious. These things are always used for political power. It's always used to drive the wedge further in society. So do I think that as they're espousing, is it some radical leftist that got up there and shot him? No, I don't believe that at all. Now, is it possible? Sure. But I think that's another thing people do in these situations too. They're so quick to jump to conclusions, to automatically assume that the other side did it. And going back to what the ATF is saying, they found a rifle with bullet casings and it had transgender and anti-fascist rhetoric inscribed on the bullet. I'm like, come on. Because if I were in a position of power and I wanted to foster more hate between different groups of people, different ideologies, I would do exactly that. I would hire some motherfucker who I know could get the job done, and I'd make it look like it was somebody from the other side doing it. It's like some shit out of a movie. But these sorts of things have happened many, many times. Like, this is nothing new. But I just wanted to draw the parallel, because we see it everywhere. People get so entrenched in their own beliefs, their own ideology, their own way of seeing things, their own perspective. It's like you can't see the forest for the trees sometimes. I try to be as objective as I can. I'm not saying, maybe sometimes I'm not. But I do my best to be as objective as possible. But as I said, it's the mindset, it's the manipulation, it's the propaganda in politics. To me, it's exactly the same as what goes on in this dog world. Ideologies battling each other, hating each other, calling each other names, constantly spewing hate at one another. And I have no problem with, say, heated debate, but when it reaches the level where you can't even have a conversation with somebody, like, go fuck yourself. You can't even have a conversation with somebody you disagree with. Are you that weak? Are you that weak as a human being that you can't even have a conversation with somebody you disagree with? It's absurd. But this is it's just one more thing. Or all the COVID shit. It was no different during that. Getting families to be against again, you got family members against one another over masks and shot. I mean, that's how deep this goes. It's like you if people in parents disowning children or siblings disowning one another, friends, it's like I still don't understand how people fall for this shit over and over and over again. But it's no different in this dog world, as I said. Oh, you use this tool? Well, I automatically hate you. You're a piece of shit because you use that tool. Oh, you said no to your dog? Well, fuck you. You're a garbage human being. Really? Are we serious right now? Or the use of rhetoric. Oh, you promote pain and suffering and abuse and yada, yada, yada. Well, because I said no to my dog? Or maybe I got a little firm verbally with my dog? Like you've never gotten firm verbally with a human being. But remember, these are the same people, though, that will spew hate and rhetoric and wish death upon their fellow human beings because they said no to their dog. Or because they put a prong collar on or something. And again, I don't use these tools or any of the e-collars, but I like just to actively hate somebody for doing that, or to call them an abuser, or to reach the level where you call them a shit human being because they do. How is it any different than what goes on in politics? It's the same fucking thing. What's up, James? How you doing, man? Morning, everybody. I'm sure it's not a subject I ever thought I'd talk about, but right, Ms. Lady. Yeah, but you know what the fascinating thing about that is, though, Miss Lady? It's when they talk about, oh, you're all about control and management or abuse to the dog. Well, wait a minute. If the dog is biting you, causing you harm, that's okay. Why is that okay? Why is it okay for the dog to try to control you, but you can't gain control of the dog? Why is it okay for the dog to bite you, send you to the hospital, but you can't say no to your dog? You can't discipline your dog? Really? That's funny. I didn't realize there was a double standard in Mother Nature that way. The dog's own fucking mother would disagree with that. It's incredible. The dog's own mother would disagree with that, and yet you somehow think that this is like a one-way street. All right, I'm gonna let you in, Goose. Just let her in. Anyway, Goose is back in the house. She's done. It's a little warm today, but I appreciate everybody joining. I was saying in the beginning, I'm sure everybody's heard of what's going on. I'm not a Charlie Kirk supporter, fan, follower, whatever. I subscribe to his channel. I like watching his debates. I don't agree with a lot of what he says, but you don't have to be able to see how fucked up this is, right? Especially, you're talking about you have 2 kids and a wife, it's like, we're really going to celebrate that? But as I said too, there are people saying I wouldn't recommend going and watching the actual video. I actually would recommend it because it's a dose of reality, It's a tough watch. But I think oftentimes we see it so much maybe in fiction, like movies or video games, or we hear about tragic events on social media so much that maybe we become a little desensitized to it. But oftentimes we don't see it to this graphic level. Like it really it hits you a little differently when you see what actually happened. I mean, there are people that are actually saw it like up close in person. And that's gonna have an effect on you, you know. But it's just wild to me the discourse that's happening. You know, because if you're not familiar, you've got people that hated him that are celebrating it, but then you've got people that say we're on his side or supported him that are basically saying, "Oh, this is war," and we need to retaliate. It's like, listen, you both of you are wrong, but this is how people get manipulated. We're manipulated into, because this is all driven by emotion, right? And so things only escalate when, say, the side that supported him, if your first knee-jerk reaction is fuck these people, we got to do something about this and retaliate, well, now you're only making the problem worse. And people in high places, that's exactly what they want to happen, is let's drive this wedge in further. I mean, how much bullshit in the media have you heard about civil war and all that? They hear this narrative for years now, and they're doing everything they can, black versus white, red versus blue, force-free versus balanced, vegan versus carnivore. I mean, it's every facet of your life. There's some wedge being driven somewhere, and it's effective. So it's like you can't escape it, but to become aware of it and to know that it's being done, and there are people that are trying to manipulate you that way, is important. Like I said, if you've never read the book Propaganda by Edward Bernays, or the book he wrote before that, I forget the actual title, it's something to do with social engineering, or read any books on the MK Ultra programs. It's all really fucked up shit, man. Right, well, that, Miss Lazy, is because you're talking about cognitive dissonance. You're talking about someone's identity, and to explore this thing that I've believed for years or maybe my whole life, and to explore the possibility that I could be wrong about that, well, it like threatens your ego, right? It threatens your identity. And a lot of people can't handle that. So your first reaction is I push it away, I criticize it, I mock it, I attack it, whatever. Not to say, like, listen, criticism is important. I guess it's just more the how you go about it, right? But I have a lot more respect for somebody who can criticize, but also be criticized, rather than only criticizing, and anytime they are criticized, they lose their shit. So that would be where it's like, you obviously have a personal problem there. But it's just, that's why if any of you have ever watched the debates that I've had on my channel, most of them have gone really well. Actually, they've all gone really well, but there have been a couple where things got a little heated, but it never reached the level of like attacking each other or calling each other names or spewing hate or any of this shit. I mean, they were all for the most part really productive conversations. I know there are people that don't agree with debate or for some reason see it as not productive, but I disagree with that. Personally, I think it is a worthwhile endeavor. But I always see these events as there's always more to these stories, right? To me, it's never just on surface level what they're saying it is or what you think it is. There's always more to the story. And I'm sure this is going to be no different. Something about it when it first happened, it was like something's off about this, especially when, you know, if you saw the videos, there was that one older guy who said, I did it, I shot him, and then they got him into custody and found out he wasn't the guy. But then they made the statement saying he was the guy, and I'm like, okay, well, how could you fuck up like that? How are you going to confirm this is the guy that did it, and you have videos hauling him away and him saying I did do it, but then turn around and say nope, he wasn't the guy, we're still looking for him? Why would that old guy even do that? It just kind of reminded me of like a Patsy situation, like Lee Harvey Oswald kind of thing. Like, what's really going on here, you know? Or it was like with the whole Trump situation, you know, when there was footage coming out like a month ago where they were showing after the shot happened, there were like photographers and media people like moving the photographers around so they get the right angle, the right shot. It's like, well, that's a bit strange, right? There's always more to the story. Or during you know, one of my favorite little pieces of evidence was especially during all the COVID shit when you had companies like Pfizer talking about, oh, our shots are safe and effective, you got to get our shots, take boosters, whatever. But then they were forced in court to release documents, confidential documents, and I still have them on my phone, adverse event reports that said that their shots were killing people. There was 1,223 deaths in those documents on top of 106,000 adverse events in 6 months. Oh, but they'll get on TV and tell you safe and effective, right? And every news segment was sponsored by Pfizer. It's the same shit, right? There's always something else going on. But how was that situation used to manipulate people? Well, that was one of the greatest fear campaigns in our entire lives, you know. And then of course you got 9/11 and financial collapse. I mean, there's so much bullshit, right? But if anyone's interested, I have a handful of great books, sources I could recommend if you're interested in learning more about how these things are used. Just gives you a different perspective on the world you live in. Or another great book, Trust Us, We're the Experts. That's a really good one. You know, about how sciences and authority figures are used to manipulate public opinion. Another great one. But that's what's done in the dog world too. You have these behavioral organizations, AVSAB, the American College of Veterinary Behaviorists, people like Zach George, these authority figures and these bodies that are held up as if they're authority figures, and the quote science that's used to try to convince you, well, this is the right way to handle your dog, and based on our studies, this is abuse, and this has long-term adverse results. But they never show you the data, do you? Do they? It's all survey studies. Oh, really? You mean you just called some people on the phone, asked them some questions, and that's your data? Right. Okay. Oh, you don't actually have long-term data to back up the bullshit you're saying? Oh, really? Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, you're going to say dominance has been outdated and it's discredited, and don't ever hire somebody who promotes that. Interesting. All right. Oh, positive reinforcement's the only way, because science says. I've heard that before. At the end of the day, all I can recommend is people Think critically about things. Don't take things on face value. Don't just believe a narrative. Don't have an emotional gut reaction to something, especially something like when something like what happened yesterday happens. Um, of course, you're gonna feel a certain type of way about it. But what I'm saying is, don't get swept up in your emotions. Don't let your emotions cloud your critical thinking. Don't be manipulated like that. And so I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how this whole thing unfolds. I mean, it's a horrible situation, no matter what. Nonetheless, you know. But yeah, I don't know. I think I've really said all I wanted to say about it. Anybody has anything they'd like to add or share? Feel free. You know, like Confucius said, may you live in interesting times. And I don't think he meant the word, I don't think he used the word interesting as in like fun, right? It's just interesting. And I think we certainly live in interesting, I think no matter what generation you're born in, there's always some kind of drama, right? But this is figuring out how to navigate all that bullshit that matters. Well, I appreciate everybody joining. I already dropped Goose off. She's already home. I'm trying to go walking around myself. But yeah, you don't have to support people like Charlie Kirk to be repulsed by what happened or to not condone the actions or the opinions or the celebrations of those who allegedly hated him. But even so, you could still hate. I mean, there are people that I really don't like, but would I ever want that sort of thing to happen to them? Fuck no. Hell no. But as people said, it's like when things like this do happen, you know now you've made a martyr out of him, so his message will now carry much more weight as a result of this having been done. But I think that's also part of the point too, is whoever carried it out. No, I don't think it was some radical leftist. You know, that's the easy answer. That's the scapegoat, right? That's the story they want you to believe, I think. I forgot what point I was trying to make with that. But I was saying, yeah. No matter how much you may even dislike somebody, but that's the narrative they're saying. They're saying that it was somebody who was probably a radical leftist or something like that. No matter how you feel about a particular person, it's not the answer. But you see how people react to it. I was talking about making martyrs out of people. Yeah, I think that's part of the point, is whoever does carry out these things, so much attention is put on it, right? And then it has that message tends to carry so much more influence. And that can also be used to manipulate people too. But then you got to figure, there's so much attention being put on this. What other things are going on now that they can slip past you that you won't even notice? Like, how many people knew about a school shooting yesterday? I didn't until somebody else pointed it out. But there's always big stories that go unnoticed because big events like this happen that just capture everybody's attention. It's a great sleight of hand. And it's easy to be swept up in it, you know. But that's about all I got to say on it. Appreciate everybody joining. Not the typical stream, but I did think it bared some similarities again to what we see in this dog world. So it's I suppose it's worth making that connection. Or you see, like, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the whole Dog Daddy Zach George drama that took place like a year or two ago. But a lot of this is very similar. You know, it's just nobody lost their life over it. But it's very similar in how, you know, these things have a natural progression. There's a lot of similarities to it. So the whole Zach George Dog Daddy thing it's very similar to the way you see political discourse happening in this country. So, man, that sun is strong. Anyway, I think I'm gonna cut it off here. The sun is getting in the camera lens. Anyway, guys, no matter where you're at, hope you have a great. What day is it? Thursday. And everybody be safe. Also, want to let everybody know, man, I appreciate everybody, you know, who tunes into these streams. Appreciate everybody who watches the videos. Appreciate everybody who supports the channel in that way. It means a lot. And yeah, always a good time to reflect on things, especially when incidents like this happen, you know. So I guess take a minute and just give it some thought. What can we all do better in our own lives, right? Anyway, hope you all have a great day.